Hello, and welcome to the Women Advancing Life podcast. Here you can listen to the unique stories of the women who make live events a reality. These conversations feature talented professionals such as concert photographers, VIP coordinators, tour managers, and more. I'm your host, Lisa, a live events and touring professional. I strive to help other women who aspire to work in the world of live music. In this week's episode of Women Advancing Live, I talk with audio engineer and production manager Abigail Bianca. Abby got her start in the live event scene back in 2017 when she got involved in a program where she learned and did audio for a variety of productions. She hit the road for the first time in 2022 working on tour as a monitor engineer and PM for Sarah Evans. Since then, she has gone on to work on various tours for artists such as Philip Phillips, Lindsey Sterling, Matt Mayer, Haley Witters, and more. You can follow Abby over on Instagram at Abigail Bianca. Tune in to learn more about her journey working in live events. All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Women Advancing Live podcast. Today, I'm joined by Abigail. Hey, Abigail. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on the podcast. I'm super excited to learn more about you and your journey as an audio engineer. So yeah, I can't wait to hear from you. But before we get started, I like to do a few quick icebreaker questions before we get to the actual interview. So first one I have for you is, what is a tour necessity for you? Like something personal that you have to take with you on tour?
I like to bring my bus Crocs. They're fuzzy, and they mean it's the end of my workday. And so when I'm done for the day, I'll change into my pajamas and slip on my bus Crocs, and we're doing great. That, or probably my radio buddy that I stick on my radio and walk around with because it brings me joy.
Aw, what type of... I know I see a lot of people with the radio buddy.
Yeah. Well, I rotate between a few. I had a Triceratops for a minute named Horny, and then I found this little plastic, pink, llama on the side of the road one day, and so I got it and shoved a knife up its butt and stuck it on my radio. And that's the way I've had for the last little bit, so... It's a fun icebreaker with stagehands. They're like, what's that? And then we get to, talk and hang, so it's fun.
Yeah, I still need to find myself a, radio buddy.
It's important, for sure.
Awesome. So next question I have for you is, what is a song or artist you've been putting on loop at the moment?
Ooh. Well, I'm always listening to Bleachers, but I've really been on a Dirty Loops kick lately because they just came to Nashville for a show, and I was able to work it, and it was so awesome. So I'm actually wearing their merch shirt right now. So a lot of Dirty Loops, a lot of Bleachers.
Yeah, I don't think I'm familiar with Dirty Loops, but yeah, I do love Bleachers. What kind of music is Dirty Loops?
Oh my gosh. They're not a specific genre, but they're like a jazzy fusion with they're a Swedish band, so it's like a pop jazz fusion type thing, but it's like a 3-piece band, and they're just so precise, and the arrangements and the music is so tight, and it's just wild. Plus the dude's vocal is just out of this world. So I love them. You should definitely give them a listen.
I love that kind of jazzy music that you can groove to.
Yeah. But it's also electronic though. There's electronic elements to it as well. That's why I say fusion. I can't even describe the genre. It's just wild.
Awesome. Next one I have is, what is one of your favorite concerts that you've attended?
Attended or worked? Because I've worked more concerts than I've attended. But I've actually seen quite a few really good ones in the last year, because I've been really prioritizing going to shows when I'm when I'm home. And so a couple of really good ones that I've seen recently were The Lone Bellow. They're amazing. Incredible stage presence. Wild. Paper Kites and Gregory Alan Isaacoff. Saw him at the Ryman, and that was just so good. Yeah. So it's been nice to attend concerts lately. I'm actually going to one tonight.
Oh, fun. Which one?
It's Fly By Midnight at the End in Nashville. Well, I like just buy a lot of tickets in advance for bands that I like. And then I just have them on the calendar, so it's pretty fun.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm trying to get into attending concerts too more often because same thing. I work more than I attend, and I just need to step into that patron facing side.
Well, I know so many people in this industry that are like, the last thing I want to do when I'm off work is to go and attend a con. Like, that's my workplace. You know what I mean? Like, they're working in that environment all the time, and so am I. But I like to put myself in that scenario as an attendee to remind myself, like, why I love live music just in the first place. You know? It keeps the excitement alive for me.
I know, yeah. That's something I noticed that I'm like, I need to attend more shows because that reminder of like, oh, this is why I'm doing it. That's why I started working in live events because I enjoyed going to concerts in the first place. So,
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's like going back to the roots of why you're even doing all this hard work.
yep. All right. Well, thank you for answering those icebreaker questions. So, for the first question of the interview that I have is, can you please tell us how you got your start in working live events and your journey up until now?
Sure. So I have been doing audio in a live scenario since 2017. So it's been almost 7 years. Summer will be 7 years doing this. And so I actually got started when I was in college. I was a junior and I attended a program actually here in Nashville called the Contemporary Music Center. And at the time, I was a broadcast communications major and I was doing a lot of like TV stuff. But I had some friends that had done this program and they were like, Abby, you need to do it. Like, you would love it. And at the time, I wanted to like be a musician and like try to become an artist and stuff. And so I was like, so this program essentially has like 3 tracks. So there's like a business track and an artist track and a tech track. And so like students from all over the country can go in and basically like focus on one of those things. And every week we put on a show. They have like, industry standard equipment at this place. And so we're getting hands-on experience. At the end of the semester, our finals, we put on a tour. And so we did a week-long tour. We had like a bus and everything. And it was just like, the students that went in as the artists played the songs. I did monitors for it. And so that's kind of how I was like, oh, I really love this. Like, this is awesome. So I ended up going back to college after that semester and like got as many jobs as I could, even slightly in relation to this industry. So I did a recording studio thing with a history podcast. I worked for Claire Systems and like built racks in their warehouse like 2 to 3 days a week. And then I did like tech crew stuff on campus. So like running sound for live events and all that. And I just kind of like dove in as much as I could just to like learn whatever I could. So I was like, this is awesome. I really want to keep doing this. So I did that. And then I graduated college in 2019 and got my first job that summer in Maryland, right outside Annapolis, doing production for a church, kind of like a church in a box kind of thing, because we were at a high school at the time. And so we would need to like load in every single Sunday and like set it up. And I was the production coordinator for this whole campus. And so I would run audio for it and set up the lights and do the stage design and set up the big-ass projector and all that. And so I ended up doing that and then getting a part-time job, which turned into a full-time job right around COVID, mixing for a music venue right outside Baltimore. It was like a casino/music venue. So half the time I was in the casino, like on the casino floor in like the smoking areas, setting up bands and tearing them down and like at like 3 a.m. because people gamble all fucking night. I ended up mixing a few really cool shows at this venue. And then finally I was like, dude, I'm loving this, but I really just want to like get on the road. And so in 2022, I was there for 2 years, did all that, moved to Nashville in 2022 and took like a $10,000 a year pay cut to work at a little production company in Nashville as in, doing audio. It didn't end up working out very much. Just wasn't a great like experience for me there. And so I ended up kind of like looking around, shopping for different things. After a few months, I was like, man, I don't know about this. They're not putting me on the road and all that. Like, And so I ended up finding my first tour in June of 2022 on Facebook. And I ended up putting in my resume, just it's a monitor engineer gig, really good gear, legacy country act. And so I ended up putting in my resume for it and getting a call from the tour manager like a week later at like 10 p.m. He was like, hey, can you be on the bus at like 8 in the morning? And then I was just like, I technically have a shift at work, but yes, I can be there. And so it's just such a reminder for people. It's just like, and I can get into it, but it's like, you have to fucking be there, you know, you got to show up. And like, if I had said, oh, I can't, I have a shift at work that I can't cancel because it's so last minute, they would have found someone else for that weekend. And then I never would have gotten my first tour. So, you know, I ended up doing the gig, went really well. They ended up wanting me to come on the road with them full time, doing monitors, and ended up doing production management for them as well. But like, they wanted me on last minute, and I ended up needing to quit my production company job like with 24 hours like advance notice because I had something like some work to do with them that week, but I had to quit it. So it was like, that was probably the most stressful thing I've had to do was like, hey, I'm supposed to fly to Michigan with you guys tomorrow, but I'm quitting now. So sorry. So I ended up doing that tour for about a year and then ended up moving into more of like a freelance thing where I was hopping around from tour to tour. So I've done probably like 8 or 9 different tours in the last 2 years, which has been really cool. Yeah, like mostly monitors, but I've moved recently into more of a front of house position now. So I'm currently doing front of house and monitors at the same time and like filling a lot of production management roles and stuff. So it's going really well. I'm just kind of like chugging along. So it's just like, you know, I do that full time and I mix over at the cannery in Nashville here and there whenever I'm home, you know, just to like keep doing stuff when I'm around town.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Especially getting that phone call super last minute. I've heard that happen many times. So obviously it's, you know, it's a common occurrence where you get a late notice and you're like, okay, well, I have other commitments. But like you said, it's like once in a lifetime opportunity. You got to go for it. And then were you always like focused on audio? Is that like something you're drawn to or?
I mean, I've always loved music. Like when I was a kid, I would write music and record it in like my attic. And I had a little like Tascam 4-track recorder and a little Behringer Xenix mixer that I'd get my effects through. And like I didn't have a DAW or anything, so I was just like cabley mess with a little drum machine. And my dad, you know, was like, he had a whole studio, and so he like gave me his like leftover gear that he would like upgrade. I learned a lot when I was like between like, you know, my early teens. So that's kind of how I got into it. But then I was just like, I really want to like be an artist. Like it's so fun. Like I was in like a couple of rock like cover bands in college and stuff. But then I ended up doing that program and I was like, what do I be? Am I, because I could do the 3 tracks. And so I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to do like the tech track or like the artist track. And I was like, oh, I'll just like do audio just to get my foot in the door. And maybe someone will like hear me sing at some point and be like, you're a star. Like, that's not how it works. So I ended up just doing a tech track. I don't know why I chose to do it. I think I just was like, get my foot in the door. I ended up loving it. So that's kind of how that came about.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, obviously you love it. You're sticking to it. So that's awesome. Can you give like a overview, like what FOH and monitor engineer, like responsibilities for that role?
Yeah, I guess you don't see a ton of doing it from the same console. At a certain level of touring, it happens when an artist can't really like afford both a dedicated monitor engineer and front of house engineer. And so a lot of the time it'll be like you have one person doing either monitors or front of house and they have a local guy doing the other one. But I'm just doing them both right now, which has been really great. But when you're doing it separately, I mean, I'm more of a monitor engineer, honestly. Like that's where I learned, and I really do love it. I think a lot of people think that like monitors is just like a stepping stone to front of house. You know, it's like you get like a new audio engineer in a venue and they're like, Oh, you have to do monitors before you can do front of house. Like, that's like the A2 role. I think that's bullshit. I think it's a whole, obviously you're still mixing, but it's a whole different mindset. It's a whole different set of skills and a whole different set of priorities. You know, you're not mixing for yourself to please your own ears like you do at front of house. You're like using your artsy brain and you're making artistic decisions, and hopefully you're making artistic musical decisions at front of house. But in monitors, you obviously use your expertise to help get there, but you're really just there to give the artist and the band the best audio experience possible. And so a lot of the time it's a little more hands off, which can be really challenging because like I've worked with artists in the past that I think they're mixed. It kills me, you know? And it's just like, I would never like choose to do this ever, but that's what they wanted to hear. And it's really fucking weird sometimes, but it's just a matter of communicating. It's a matter of getting in your artist's head and their brain and understanding what they need when they say like, my voice sounds really purple today. It's like, all right, we're gonna dive into that and figure out what that means, and we'll get it there. Like, it's like a whole different language that you're doing. So I think people that throw just whatever Joe Schmo local guy doing monitors and like giving just whoever control of your artist's ears, which is their most important like part of them, I think that's bullshit. Like, you need someone that's going to take care of them and nurture them in that way. So that's a big part of it. And then, you know, a lot of the time when I do monitors, I'm like also just taking control of the stage. You know, I know where everything gets patched, because if something breaks on stage, I'm the one on there that needs to fix it. So I need to know where everything goes. I need to know how everything's patched, make it nice and clean, all that stuff. Front of house engineer a lot of the times is a little more on an island, which can be good because if something goes wrong, you're not the one getting immediately fired. Like, I feel like monitors, you're a lot more in the hot seat. Something goes wrong and it's like, it's your fault. You know what I mean? So artists having a bad day, you're the one that's you're gonna know about it. Front of house guy is fine. In my experience, so it's a whole bunch of separate responsibilities, but they're interchangeable at the same time. So
no, yeah, that makes sense, because like, you know, I have a basic understanding of each position. Like monitors, like you're mixing basically what the artist wants to hear, and then in front of house is like what the audience hears. So like, it sounds simple, but there's so many intricacies, and I know it's not as simple as I think it is to do that.
Yeah, it's a lot of nuance for sure.
Yeah, that's cool though that you have the lens into both roles. So you say you also do production management for some of the tours that you do. Do you do both audio engineer and PMing?
Mm-hmm. Typically, that's what I do. So I've done monitors and production management. That first tour that I did ended up moving into that type of a role, which was really good. And so I really got my foot in the door and like a lot of hands-on experience advancing shows and being the person making the production calls day of show, letting venues know the shit that we need, that, you know, having those conversations like, do you have what we need as far as power? Do you have risers for us? Whether it's like the stagehand, like it's a lot of even labor coordination and all of that. So I did that for a year with my first tour, and then I did a front of house production management role last fall for like a 2-month long tour that I did. And it was like a church tour. And so that was like a whole other level of challenging, because a lot of the churches that we toured in were like older, like Baptist churches, because I guess it's a little less mega churchy demographic. But that was super interesting because a lot of these venues and churches we played at didn't have like updated sound systems that would fit our needs. They didn't have the power situation that we needed. And so we were like trying to find separate circuits in the floor sockets to like power up all our gear and stuff. And like some of load-in pads and pushes were like all these stairs, because the buildings were like old and they really care about architecture but not about like functionality, which was really frustrating. So it was just a matter of like working with each of those people at each venue and like having those conversations like, all right, how can we make this work? Like, what gear do you have? Sometimes I would need to rent speakers and everything because the gear that they had was just way too old, or it would be broken altogether. And they were like, oh yeah, you're going to need to like rent some speakers from like this local production company and just stuff like that. So a lot of coordinating. And I mean, it's great. I really enjoy doing it. I would definitely want to keep moving in that direction for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. Especially like doing that for your first tour. That's not like overwhelming, but I feel like it probably was something to like grow into. So how was that first tour experience for you?
Well, I went into it like knowing enough, but I definitely like it's kind of funny because my very first tour, I was like, have you ever used an SXL desk before? And I was like, no, but I can learn. And so they were like, okay, cool. Climb onto the bus, say hi to everybody, get into my bunk, and immediately start watching YouTube videos about this desk because it was like, all right, by the time we get to the venue in like 4 hours, like I need to know this desk and I need to show them that I can learn super quickly and I understand it. And like if I can't, the gig's not mine, but I want this. You know what I mean? So that's kind of how I approach the production management thing too, because I've never done it before. I had kind of with like the church production coordinating experience that I had done, and I am just a naturally assertive, organized person, and so I think my tour manager kind of like saw that in me, and so it was really helpful. We're still like really good friends to this day, but he was super helpful in like giving me insight and kind of like training me in that way. And so if there was ever like a show like ending situation, I could be like, what do we do in this scenario? And he would like give me his input and stuff, which was super helpful. But I mean, that's kind of how I approach every single like new situation I find myself in when it comes to gigs. Is like I'm always at first just like, we're gonna see how this goes, you know? But it always ends up working out just because I don't know, it just does for some reason. That's kind of strange. But like every single new opportunity is a little intimidating, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I've literally just had the same conversation with a friend of mine who is like going to be picking up a tour, and she's a little like on edge about it because she's never done this type of thing before. And I'm just like, girl, like you have the skills, you're smart as fuck, and you're a hard worker. You're going to be fucking fine. It's just a matter of like taking that nervous energy and turning it into like excitement to learn, you know? That's kind of how I've approached all that.
No, yeah, I think it's very true because I feel like a lot of the time that's how it goes for a majority of people who work in live events. They just kind of get thrown into something that they've never done before. So just like going in with that approach of like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm willing to learn. I'm a hard worker. Just like take it head on and usually works out.
Yeah, well, last summer I got an email about a 5-week tour where I was asked to hang PA for the whole tour, me a PA tech, and fly Meyer PA. And anyone that knows anything about line arrays knows that Meyer is a real pain in the ass. It's really heavy. It's Noel acoustics. It's a tough one. It's a tough one to hang. And so I got this email about it because I had like put in a Discord at one point that I was interested in learning more about like PA and all that. Like that's the SE side of things. And then I got an email one day that was like, do you want to fly PA for this tour? And I was like, sure. I've never done it before. I really hope you have someone that can teach me though. I didn't say that. I was like, oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, like totally down. They're like, oh, you're comfortable doing that? And that was like, I've flown PA before once or twice. So I just kind of played it off and I ended up actually like crushing it. It just took me a while to like remember how to do it every day. So it was a lot of learning on the spot. One of my best friends to this day was the SC for the first part of that tour. And he can like fly PA in like 2 seconds. It's insane. But he was basically like, she showed me once how to do it. And I was like, all right, have fun. You're going to let it come back in by yourself now because we were loading out. And he's like, all right, if you need me, give you a shout, but you got this, right? And I was like, totally. It was just wild. And so like really thrown into the fire, but it ended up going really well, which is good. So, but like, that's just another example of like, I don't actually know what I'm doing, but I'm going to fucking learn and I'm going to do a good job. So I don't know. It's just kind of how I roll.
No, yeah, I've definitely been in that situation where I've been like asked to do something, like take on a new role, and I'm like, okay, well, I have no freaking experience doing this, but yeah, I want to do it, so I'm gonna say yes. But yeah, it can be very intimidating, but it's just like you just got to take any opportunity you can to like learn and grow if you want to make this a career. So
yeah, and that's why it's so important to like have a support system and to have like people that you know and you trust in this industry that you can lean on and ask advice to, you know? Like one of my friends out on that tour, I would sit down with her every single night after every show and be like, okay, remind me how to get this PA in the air again tomorrow morning because I forgot. Like, it always gets like stuck at the curve or whatever. And so it was just like I had to pinpoint people that I knew would back me up and help me out. And I would lean on them essentially. And so to this day, like I want to start moving into like a tour management position at some point in the future, you know? And so I have my people that I know I can always call on if there's, you know, if I need advice or whatever. So that's super important too, is finding your support system and people that'll help you out without thinking that you're less than because you have questions, you know? Some people will think just because you have questions that you're not capable, but that's bullshit.
I totally agree with that because it's just like having a support system is so important and also kind of ties in with like mentorship and like the whole networking thing. But it's really important to just have people that you trust to lean on and, like you said, go to it for advice. And I think in the beginning it was like rough for me, but like I think once I started establishing those relationships with people, I think that's when like things started seeming so much easier, like new opportunities and things that didn't seem as intimidating. But it's just like I have people that I can look to if I do need help or have questions. So I think that's super important for people to have. So that's great that you know you have a group of people that you can turn to. What was I gonna say, have you had any challenges that you've come across so far, like working in live events, and like what did you do to like overcome them?
Dude, so many. Every single day is a challenge. Like literally, that's the nature of the beast, you know? It's a new venue every day, and you're working with new types of personalities at different, you know, every single tour is, you're not always going to mesh with people. There was the one tour where I was flying PA. There were a few personalities on that tour that not normally people that I would mesh with. And it was just a matter of kind of stepping back and being like, dude, I would never hang out with this person one-on-one. I would never choose to. But we're a team and we're all trying to do the same thing. We're trying to put on a kick-ass show. So got to set that shit aside. You know, that's probably the biggest thing a lot of the time is like personalities. I've been really lucky that most of the tours I've done, I end up like being in group chats with those people like months and months later, you know? If you're an easy person to hang out with, you're going to be fine. That's just super important. But like, there'll always be clashing personalities and stuff. Other challenges, I mean, we just did an opening slot for an arena tour. That in itself was really challenging because it was arenas every single day. It was stay out of the way until they need you, but when they need you, be ready 20 minutes beforehand. That's like my go-to, like how I roll is like, especially when you're in a support position, because they have so much shit they gotta do. They don't want to have to be tripping over your gear, you know, if you like unloaded it too early or whatever. So like the communication aspect of it, like learning, it was just a whole different learning curve because we weren't the headliner, you know, and I'm used to doing like the headlining thing. And so it wasn't my first like opening slot on a tour. And it was just like, dude, we're not the priority here. Like we will get whatever stage time is given to us. We might not get any. And if that's the case, we're just going to have to make a show happen, you know? And so that was super challenging. Ended up getting in a groove with it, which was really good. And now that it's over, I'm really sad because like the folks in the other camps are just like incredible, but it's a small industry. So we all bump into each other again in the future. But that was like a huge learning curve and a challenge for me was just that mindset. Like you're going to get the scraps, you know, but essentially that's what it is, you know, because it was us and then another artist and then the headliner. We're about to go in and do it again, essentially, but on a stadium level. And so I'm like expecting a whole other learning curve. Like it's starting this weekend. And so I'm just like getting my mind ready to like learn a whole new flow, essentially. So That's what I mean by it's always a challenge. Like every single gig brings a new challenge to it for sure.
Yeah, that's true. And like back when you're like mentioning about the clashing personalities, it's like with any job you're always going to have like coworkers that don't really get along with compared to others, but it's just like with touring with that added, like you're working with each other for like 15 plus hours a day. You see each other every day. You're living with these people.
You can't clock out at 5 o'clock and go home and be like, I'll see that person in the morning. No, you're like sleeping, you're sharing the same bathroom, you're eating dinner together, you're sleeping together essentially. Like it's just crazy.
Yeah, just being able to set those differences aside, like you said, because like we have to get this shit done. So whether we get along or not, like we just gotta make it happen. So I like that you bring that up with that perspective shift with like working on the headlining tour and going to being an opener, because I definitely have seen that like with tours that come through the venues that I work with, like, oh, you're the opener, so blah 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 blah.
Yeah, it's unfortunate how openers are treated sometimes by the headliners, and I've experienced that. I did do a little like 2-week thing last year where we did an opening slot and we were not treated well at all. There was like the headlining camp essentially like would have their food and their catering and stuff with a sign that's like for our crew only, and we'd be in the middle of nowhere with no runners and no food, and we would just need to like figure out how to feed ourselves that day, and it was a pretty low budget tour, and so it was just like it sucked. And you could tell that they were like annoyed when we were around and stuff, so it really can make or break an experience. Thankfully, the tour I just did, we were treated super well. And so I was really thankful for that. But it's not always that way, unfortunately.
No, I know that's really unfortunate because like, we don't get as much like stage time, but we're doing the same show. So I feel like it's just, there shouldn't be that need to kind of downplay or look down on another just because of that. So what is some advice that you would give to people who are like aspiring to work in live events, work in audio?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends. I talk to younger people about this shit all the time, actually, which I love doing, especially like younger women. Like, I mean, I'm 26, but like I know people that are in their early 20s, barely even in their 20s, and they're like, I want to do this. It's like there's not a clear like path. It's not like you want to be a doctor, and so it's like go to doctor school, or you know what I mean? Like it's not like that. Everyone gets into it in a different way. And so it really depends on each person's their circumstances. But what I always tell people is get into a hub, like a music hub, Nashville, New York, Austin, even maybe even Atlanta, maybe LA. But like, I'm just like Nashville is the place to be, because things like what happened to me, where my tour manager texted me was like, can you be on the bus in like 8 hours? You just have to be there for that, because if I was still living in Maryland at that time, I couldn't have done it. And then I missed my window or my opportunity. And sure, maybe other opportunities would show up in the future, but like that was the one for me. So I always just tell people, get your ass to a music hub and be willing to like drop anything for it, honestly. Like, be willing to drop your job, your serving job, or your studio, whatever. If this is what you want to do, you have to be able to put anything aside and just say yes to it. So that's always challenging for people. Don't get a dog. Don't go buying yourself a dog, because if you want a fucking tour, I know so many people that are like, I really want a tour, and they go and they buy themselves a dog, and then someone asks them to go on the road, and they're like, oh, I can't. I have to take care of my dog. I'm just like, dude, what are you doing? So unless you're married with someone that's staying home and will watch your dog, don't get a dog. Get a cat. Cats are better. You can give them some dry food and disappear for 3 days. You could do the weekend warrior thing and you're fine. So for that. And then, I don't know, just like keep putting yourselves in situations where you're going to grow. Like, don't pigeonhole yourself, I guess, and always be looking for opportunities to grow, especially when you're on like bigger tours with more acts, or you're doing festivals and you're meeting more people. Like, say you're doing a 40-minute set on a festival and the person right after you, like, go hang out with them. If you're not like bothersome, obviously. Like, ask questions about, what they're doing if you want to learn. Normally, audio engineers really want to talk about audio, and they really want to talk about their workflow and their signal chain and like all their stuff. And they're just like super dirty, and they want to like tell you about it. So unless they're having like a shit day, don't bother them. But like normally I'll go up, I'll always introduce myself. I'll just be like, dude, like that I love, they're using a desk. How's this like desk treating you? Like, and just kind of start out that conversation and meet people, get phone numbers, get Instagrams, get an Instagram, get pictures of you mixing, because Instagram in a big way is like a resume these days, honestly. So I'm friends with a lot of industry folks on there, and it's so fun because it's like you're watching your friends like travel all over the world, and you're like, oh cool, I love that venue, and you're just like chatting with each other in a nonchalant way, and that shit leads to good friendships, and it leads to possible gigs, and it leads to just like knowledge shared between people. It's such a small niche industry with like a small group of people, and everyone knows each other, especially in the country world. So it's like, just be a cool person and be cool to hang out with too. You could be like the best person ever at your job, but if you're fucking annoying to hang out with on the bus, no one just gonna want you on that gig, So it's just like, be a cool hang too. Like, that's a huge part of it. And don't take a shit in the bus bathroom, please. I don't care if there's a grinder, personally. It's just like, don't do it. But yeah, there's just so much. But just like, be a cool person to spend time with, and be willing to learn, be willing to admit when you're wrong about shit, especially when you're like a production manager or a tour manager. Like, those folks that think they do everything right and blame shit on everyone else, when they're in that leadership role, I think is the most frustrating thing, because then you can't approach them and like have a conversation about maybe what could be done better in the future, So just be humble and be like willing to learn and be a cool hang. That's it. Also, get involved with a production company. Get into a music hub and find a production company. There are a lot of ones in Nashville that you can go work in the shop and get your hands on gear. I mean, that's what I did when I first, in 2017. I like literally just went to Claire and I was like, hey, I know just a little bit about audio, but I really want to like learn more. Can I work here? And my interview was essentially, the guy at the warehouse was like, here, solder this XLR cable right in front of me. And I was like, thank God I know how to do this. And then I did it, and he was like, all right, you have the job. And I basically just soldered XLRs 8 hours a day in that place, and like cut Velcro and like dressed some racks and stuff, which was cool. But like, I just was around the gear, and it made me comfortable with it. So that's another thing for sure.
Yeah. Obviously with like the whole like meeting people and putting yourself out there, obviously it's like a big thing. But yeah, like you were saying, Instagram, I like going into music is just like the last thing I expected to be like, oh, your Instagram is basically like your business card, kind of. I always exchange with people when they want to connect with you. It's like, oh, what's your Instagram? So yeah, I feel like definitely having a presence on Instagram is very beneficial if you want to work in live events. So
yeah. I mean, not that you need to be like an influencer, right? But it's helpful to post a picture about a console you're using, because this person at one point, he DM'd me on Instagram and offered me a gig because he was like, I need someone that knows an SXL, and I saw you on it in your picture. Like, literally as simple as that.
Wow, that's crazy. That's a perfect example. And also too, like you were saying, like be a cool hang, because something I always like tell people is like, you can teach anyone any job, but you can't teach personality, And, like, you don't have to be like the coolest person ever, just like be pleasant, be nice to be around, and be kind to people, treat people nicely, be good at your job.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then it goes back to the dog thing, because it's so funny that you bring that up, because I have a dog and like I live at home. So fortunately, if I am gone for long periods of time, I have my family to take care of her, but I can't leave her alone because she doesn't like being alone for too long, and she needs someone to be around. So it's like, so when you were saying that, I'm like, yeah, a dog is a commitment unless you have like people to take care of it. I love having dogs, but that's something I definitely have kept in mind because of like my work lifestyle.
It's like such a simple thing, but people don't think about it, and they're just like, oh, this puppy's cute, let me get it. It's basically a child. And so now you can't, like, if someone were to be like, hey, I have a 3-week tour mixing front of house or being a lighting director, do you want an incredible experience? Can't do it. You went and got yourself a child. So It's just like, don't do it. They're cute. I love dogs.
Yeah, I know. I was laughing so hard when you brought that up because like people don't really think about it, but that is like a thing you definitely have to consider. Well, I do want to thank you again for coming on today and just sharing your knowledge and your experience, your journey with us. It was so great to hear from you. You're very lovely to talk to, by the way. I love your energy.
Oh, thank you. Oh, I appreciate it. This was great. I had a great time.
Yeah, thank you again, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Women Advancing Live. If you enjoyed the conversation, make sure to rate the podcast and give us a follow. You can also check out our Instagram at Women Advancing Live and our website www.womenadvancinglive.com to stay updated with all news and content. Also make sure to follow and connect with Abby on Instagram at Abigail La Bianca. That's it for today. See you down the road.